way of Will John.
Guys, what's up? Today we have Gary Byrne, who is a former United States Secret Service officer, firearms instructor, writer, uniformed division officer at the White House, serving under President Bush and President Bill Clinton, Air Force security policeman, and most recently a retired United States Federal Air Marshal. Over his 29 years of service to the United States and with his YouTube channel, he aims to pass on some of the knowledge and lessons he's learned to his followers. He has also written both Crisis of Character, detailing his firsthand experience with Hillary and Bill Clinton, and Secrets of the Secret Service. Mr. Badass, Mr. Gary Badass. How's it going, man? How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. I'm not sure that's the appropriate title.
I think it is.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, like I said before we were filming, I just kind of I'd run into some of your stories beforehand, and it's unique because you have a perspective that we as citizens do not really know anything about. Everything that we see is probably from movies. Yes. And, we've had on other Air Force pilots, we've had on scientists and stuff like that. And we asked them things like that are in movies. We had on an Army Ranger. Literally nothing in movies is almost nothing is correct. So, I'm sure we'll get into that. But so why don't you tell us how you got into all of this? And we'll
so I got out of high school in 1981, which was a very long time ago. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And so my dad had been in the Air Force, so I followed his footsteps. And I wanted to get into law enforcement. So I got a job in the Air Force Security Police, and I was there for 4 years. I was trained in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. And then my first year was in Turkey, a place called 𝗪𝗟𝗡, Turkey, which is, if you looked at a map of Turkey, it's about an hour north of Ankara, Turkey, on the Turkish side of the Black Sea.
I love that side.
So, and then after the Air Force, or after Turkey, I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. And then when I got out of the Air Force, I got a job. Actually, for about a year, I worked at a nightclub as a bouncer, which was fine. You know, I was young and so anyway. And then I got a job with the Boeing aircraft company. I worked at Boeing for about 4 years. And I started out in their shop building. They trained me how to assemble aircraft. And I was actually hired to build the V-22, which is this giant tilt rotor. It looks like a helicopter. It's got, but it flies like an airplane too. Mm-hmm. And it's for the U.S. Marine Corps, and actually a lot of services have it all over the world. But anyway, so then I saw this advertisement. Actually, my girlfriend at the time, who's been my wife for over 33 years now, saw this advertisement about the Secret Service Uniform Division. So I filled out this little card and I mailed it in. And next thing you know, I got hired. It took like two and a half years to do the background check. So, I started out my career with the Secret Service Uniform Division, and I was there for 12 years. I started with Papa Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush. Did 8 years with the Clintons, and then about 2 years with son Bush, George W. And then I transferred over to the Air Marshal program after the 9/11 attack. So.
Okay. So that's a lot. I mean, and that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to dig in.
Ask me anything.
There, Well, because what's the normal day look like when you're at the White House and stuff? I mean, I've been outside the White House.
Yes.
How much do we know? How much do you get to get into? Because I know that there's separate quarters for obviously tours and stuff like that, and then the private stuff. So I'm so curious of what you just kind of, are you supposed to be just kind of a fly on the wall? Or is it more like when they pass you? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So you asked a lot of questions there. So let's start out with that, and then when I start going off, steer me back.
Okay.
As far as being a fly on the wall, so let's say, if you're at an event and you're protecting, whoever's president at the time, nothing is supposed to be about you. Nothing. So you are supposed to be, out of the way, and when you're doing something when it's being filmed, like the news agencies know when they can try not to catch especially the agents on camera. And but it happens all the time. You try to stay out of the way until you need to be in the way. Something goes wrong, and it's not always security. It's also sometimes medical response. Um, my what drew me to public attention years ago was I worked outside the Oval Office during Bill Clinton's time, and I got kind of drafted into his impeachment scandal.
I
But
see.
the a typical day at the White House. Let's do that because I like doing that because it's funny.
All right.
And the other thing, well, it's funny to me. I'll do two of them. I'll tell you a typical day for a uniform division officer, and then I'll tell you from my perspective, watching them for a long time, what it's like for for a president, what it's like to be president. And so for me, when I worked at the White House on day shift, um, first of all, the real estate in Washington D.C. is astronomically expensive, and so to buy a house somewhere, to afford a house, you have to live about 50 miles away. So you either live in Maryland or Virginia, and I lived in Maryland, about 53 miles away, and so you get to work around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. You go. I usually worked out first, and then I reported to roll call. Roll call was at 6, and then basically what roll call is picture a room, with a kind of a probably a 7 foot ceiling, not very. It was in the basement at the time. The uniform division roll call room on the West Wing side. There was two, one on the West Wing, one on the East Wing. So if you look at the White House, and I'm going to teach you guys a very valuable lesson. There's no front door or back door to the White House. There's the south entrance and the north entrance. And the reason that is if you're when you invite people to the White House, heads of state, there are reasons why you bring them in one door, not the other. And the White House does not want anybody ever to refer to one of the entrances as the back door, because then you're insulting that country. So you either come in the south side or the north side.
Okay.
And so anyway.
But you were going through the standard day. You got there, you worked out, you got roll call. After roll call, what happens?
Yeah. So after roll call, you go to post, and when I first got there, your post would be on the perimeter. You work the perimeter. They basically kept you out on the perimeter for at least 3 to 6 months to make sure you weren't crazy. I mean, to get that job, you had to take a polygraph test. You had to take multiple drug tests. You had to take all kinds of psychological evaluations. And then, but they keep you on the outside post for a while, so you learn the whole process. And so you would take your post. When I worked outside the Oval Office, I would report, after roll call, and I had usually already worked out. And the post outside the Oval Office is actually manned by two people. And when I worked there, it was my post, and then the other guy was my relief guy. So I would be, because you had to stand there. They didn't want you sitting outside during work hours. So I would take it for an hour or two, and then my partner would take it for an hour or two, and so you'd report to the to post, and there'd be a schedule, and you already probably have a copy of the schedule. Now this is before everybody had these, cell phones, and so you got a paper copy of the president's public schedule. And then when you got to post, there was another a notebook there that the other officers would write in, and you would look at that and make sure there could be something off the record that wasn't on the public schedule, and then you just wait for the president to show up. So it depends on who, when George H.W. Bush, or as I referred to him as Papa Bush, was president in the early 90s, like he reported to the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. And when I say 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't mean 7:01. I mean, at 6:59, he was coming through the door. Wow. So, and then President Clinton was, a little bit less rigid when it came to time. And so, okay. And apparently, based on what I understand from people that knew him in Arkansas, worked with him in Arkansas, and then at the White House, it's the way he always was.
Sure.
Time is just a reference. And so he would come in about 9 o'clock in the morning, sometimes a little later, sometimes earlier. But he would come in, and so let's say, whatever time it is, you're on post, you've checked the schedule, and then if you're my post outside the Oval Office, you have to go. There's a series of checks you have to do. You have to basically sweep the whole suite. You walk through it. You make sure nothing's out of place. You're looking for classified information that might have been left out. And if you find it, you just pick it up and you have this special safe, you put it in. And then when the staff or the president show up, you give it back to them.
Right.
That rarely happens. It happens once in a while. When a president's new and his staff is new, you have a lot of, mistakes, issues. You get them ironed out. And then once you've made sure everything is normal, then you open up the suite. And in other words, you open up the door to the cabinet room, you open up the outer Oval Office door, and then when the staff shows up, they open up their own doors. And you basically check with them. Hey, how are you? Good morning. And then you wait for the president to come over, and they will tell you if anything is different. Like you work with the staff. Like Bill Clinton's secretary was Betty Carey, and his personal assistant was Nancy Hernreich. And the first thing they did in the morning, after they said hello to me and opened up the door and went in, they came back out and said, do you know anything that I need to know? And I would say the same thing. And, has anything changed? What's going on? And then you wait for the president to come over. And basically the way it would work is he'll be up in the private living quarters, which is the top 2 floors. Now, you said you had been to the White House on the
No,
public
I
tour?
haven't. But no, I
Okay.
just assumed. I know that there are public tours going on. I know that there's a
Yeah, yeah.
separation between the public
Yeah.
and the private.
Yeah. But you know what? Sometimes the separation is like, you wouldn't believe how close you are to them. It's really
Oh
great.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little bit about that too. So, but,
All right.
so then the president, he gets ready to come over, and so he'll call. He'll go to the elevator on the private living quarters, and so the top 2 floors is the private living quarters, and it's approximately 25,000 square feet on those 2 floors. Now,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, so it's pretty good size.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, well, from the average person, it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I should say for most people.
Hmm.
So when you look at the White House from the outside, whether it's the north side or the south side, and so the north side is the opposite side of the Washington Monument. Okay, so when you're standing on Pennsylvania Avenue looking at the White House, to the average person, it looks like it's 3 stories. It's not. There's actually a story above what you're looking at, but you can't see it because it's set back. And then there's 1, 2, 3 floors below that are, like kitchen floors, staff, maintenance, that kind of stuff. And it's no public secret. There's actually a bunker under there. And I say
Okay.
it's no
There's
public
gotta
secret because
be. There's
yeah,
just
well,
gotta be.
you can look it up. Yeah, the
Okay.
story behind it is great. If you
Okay.
look it up, the bunker was built during Truman's administration in the late 40s after the Second World War, and the story about it is just really funny.
Mhm.
But I'll keep going on, and if you
Yeah,
want to know some more about that, ask me
for sure.
when I'm because I'll lose my focus quick. But anyway, so then they where was I?
After the 3
So he
floors. Yeah.
Yeah, so he calls the right. So it's bigger than it looks is my point. So when the president's ready to come down, he pushes the button on the elevator, and the elevator goes up, and the houseman, one of the men that works is like a staff. So the people that run the White House, it's called the executive residence staff, and they don't change with administrations. And I would tell you right now that if you and I could walk in there, I could introduce you to probably at least 5 people whose one of their parents worked there, one of their
Wow.
parents worked there,
Wow. Wow.
and all the way back to the days of, you know, as far back as you can imagine.
Right.
It's just
Right.
crazy. Nepotism lives well at the White House, and if you just can't. I mean, people apply all the time for jobs there, but generally speaking, the White House hires people
What they
that they
know.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they're exempt. They got exempt years ago from the general rules and regulations that other government agencies have to follow. So anyway,
Yeah.
so the houseman, the door opens up and the houseman's there. He says, "Good morning, Mr. President." The president's probably standing there with like probably a briefcase in his hand, maybe some folders in another hand, sometimes a cup of coffee. Depends on who the president was. And then they ride the elevator down together. Now, the Secret Service agents have 2 substantial offices in that building. One is under the West Wing, basically right under the Oval Office, and then the other one is in the mansion, right at the base of that elevator that I'm talking about. And it's in the main hallway on the ground floor. And so they know, like when the elevators is called up, they know the agents come out of the office near the elevator. The name of the office is actually called staircase because it is literally under the staircase, which is next to the elevator shaft. So the guys, the agents in staircase will walk out. They wait for the president to come down, and as soon as he starts moving, the uniform division officer there starts calling over the radio, and then the agents do on their net. And so, for instance, when the houseman goes up in the elevator, the uniform division officer at the ground floor post there will go over the radio and basically say something like, so when I worked there, the call sign for the control center was called band box. So we'll just use that. They'll say band box, Echo 1, elevator going up. And then when the elevator comes down, they'll say Eagle ground floor. That was Bill Clinton's code name.
Sure.
And again, all this stuff is public. And
yeah.
So then they'll say Eagle moving. Now we know generally where he's going. He's coming over to the West Wing. But if he does divert, they'll come back and say it right away. And then the agents repeat the same thing when they say them, and then they basically just loosely follow him over. They don't have he'll come down, he'll say good morning. Sometimes Hillary Clinton, first lady, might be with him. Who knows? They could have house guests. It could be their daughter. Sometimes would walk over with them, and so they'll walk over. They'll stay inside the mansion on the ground floor, and then they'll cut through this little. It was called the plant room? No, map room? No, I forget the name of it now. But this small room, and where they kept a lot of plants, and then they'll go out through there, and then they'll go onto the West Colonnade, and they'll walk down the West Colonnade. It's outside, but it's covered, and then they go to the Oval Office. And so when you worked my posts outside the Oval Office, in the outside in the interior of the inner door. I know he's coming. So the first thing I do when I hear the elevators moving is I'll take the rope down. The Oval Office door is open. I'll take the rope down. I'll walk across and I'll unlatch the door. All the doors are always locked. I'll unlatch the door so the agent, when he comes over, does not have to open the door and take his attention off of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I'll have the door open for them. And usually Bill Clinton would pull the door open. But if he didn't, I would push it open with my foot and then I would get out of the way. I would move back to the middle of the room, close to the middle of the room. The president would walk in, the agent would walk in, he'd secure the door. For some reason he didn't, I would secure it. And then we would both, the president would usually say, hey, good morning, how are you? And I'd say, good to see you, thanks, right. Whatever. And then walk outside and close the door. And then they begin their day, whatever's going on. Once in a while, there'll be people waiting for them. If there's anything going on, one of the coolest things about working at the White House, especially in that job and being an agent on the president's detail, was what's going on in the world. Before most everybody else does.
Of course.
And sometimes it's a little terrifying, but you get to see stuff that you will never, ever, ever see. No, nobody will ever see.
That's what I wanted to. I mean, not necessarily. Obviously, you can only divulge what you can divulge.
Yeah.
But since you got brought into, how much of, I'll keep it simple, and that my questions will evolve from this. But since you got kind of, let's say, caught up in due to the nature that you're standing outside the Oval Office, and I was fairly young when the impeachment trials were going on.
Yes.
In the 90s, right, for Bill. But, given your proximity, you had to have either noticed or been around things that were going on. I mean, with the Lewinsky scandal going on, and I can't remember everything because, like I said, I was a little bit too young to really want to pay attention to politics. But what was that like when you had to testify? Did you have to say anything that you were feeling like I just want to do my job, but
that's exactly right.
Okay.
So the first book, Crisis of Character, it pretty much revolves around the impeachment. And so, yes, I knew what was going on. And basically,
when you say that, sorry to cut off. When you say you knew what was going on, it was clear to you that like ladies were coming through the Oval Office or wherever. I don't even know.
So,
is that what you mean? Okay.
Well, so first of all, like all the rumors that we heard from Arkansas about his behavior, their behavior,
Uh-huh.
came true. They basically brought the circus to DC. Now, when the rumors started first flying around about Monica Lewinsky, I already knew who she was. And I just thought she was a climber, a ladder climber. You know what I mean? Like she
Mhm.
was a young intern. And just to give you some perspective, during this time frame, there were 200 interns in the Clinton administration.
Okay.
Can you name another one?
No. No.
Okay, so my point being is she forced herself. It's a lot of people they have sympathy for, and I have sympathy for a little bit too. But my sympathy for her is that she was so used to not so used to getting her own way, and the way she was raised, she circumvented all rules and regulations and policies, and she was just forced her way into whatever she wanted to,
Mhm.
and she ended up just kind of destroying her life,
Right.
and I feel bad about that, but so. So I'd heard the rumors. I didn't believe them at first. I wanted to, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little naive at first. And the first president I protected was President Bush, Papa Bush. So it was a completely different atmosphere, and it kind of set you up for like, well, I can't really believe that's going on, but it was, and at some point it became. Now I knew he was having affairs with other women,
Okay.
contact with other women, and I ended up having to testify eventually to about 5 different women, and Monica. I gave him the benefit of the doubt at first, and then one day I was working there, and it became obvious. She showed up on a Saturday, nobody was there,
Right.
and it was clear what was going on. And then just to give you an idea, it's how crazy it got. At some point during my testimony, I had to testify to helping the Navy steward who takes care of the president in the Oval Office basically get rid of hand towels that had Bill Clinton's semen on it.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
just yeah,
So that
so
level.
not
Yeah.
something you want to put on the resume, but but
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's the way it was. And here's the other thing that's important to understand. I thought we all got away with it, and what I mean is I worked there for about 3 years, and then I transferred over to the East Wing where I was in the tour section. The uniform division officers give the tour at the White House. And then eventually I left the tour section and went out to the training center to teach firearms. And so when the story broke, I was out uh, at the training center, and I thought we had dodged a bullet. And
Right.
then the story I heard about it, it broke pretty much for most people on the Howard Stern radio show. Um, it had
Yeah,
been
I remember.
posted the night before by Matt Drudge, and he read it off Matt Drudge's website. And so, the old saying, the secretion hits the fan, and it did. And so,
Can I ask then why
yeah.
why was there such a stark difference? Because I mean, it's a general public knowledge or open secret that Kennedy was basically engaging in that sort of some similar, let's say, somewhat behavior
Oh no,
as
absolutely.
and that didn't get reported on. And was that a nature of the journalists not wanting to do something because America was in this situation and during the 90s we were kind of okay? Or how come?
So different times. So first of all, the Kennedy White House, um, in different ways, embraced the press corps. I mean, there was like, you know, from my perspective, being in the Secret Service Uniform Division,
Right.
I would say that the White House press secretary at the time for President Kennedy purposely kind of breached that line that should be between the press because he wanted them to be endeared to the president personally, so they would be discreet, and they were for the most part. But it blew up, and there's some stories, and nothing I'm going to tell you is like it's been public. You just have to research it.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, there's no secret that that's the way President Kennedy conducted himself, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. I say it's
Sure.
bad behavior as far as what you the vows that you take or whatever, and morally.
Right.
But that's not my the Secret Service isn't there to be anybody's moral compass, and I
Exactly.
certainly
Yeah,
was.
it's not your job
Yeah.
to
So
determine
so
that.
when you fast forward to Bill Clinton, The problem is that who he really was public, but the White House press corps, excuse me, not the White House press corps, the White House staff's job was to spin to make it look like everything that was being said about him wasn't real, and it started from the very beginning. Just to give you your younger audience an idea, so Bill Clinton starts running in like 1990, and then the first story that surfaces is this woman from Arkansas. Her name's Jennifer Flowers, and she comes forward to say that she had a long time affair with Bill Clinton. So of course they spin it. No, that's not true. She's this, and of course they attack the person right away. Oh, she's this, bitter lounge singer that could never make it big, and Bill Clinton did her a favor one time, and she's trying to get back at him.
Right.
And then she comes forward with like 13 hours of audio tape,
Oh no.
taping their conversations.
Oh.
So then somebody from the staff during the campaign goes on Larry King's talk show. And they basically, what they did was they hired a professional audio guy to take Larry King's interviews and dub them with somebody else's voice.
Wow.
With made it look like he was talking to a woman.
Yeah.
And then when they did it, that's all they did. They just played that tape, and he said, "Well, of course I'm not having an affair with that woman." And the girl said, "Yeah, that's right. We made that up. That's what these people did." And then they broke the conversation and went on to something else. And the truth was, the woman was telling the truth, and everything you hear about the Clintons. One of the things I learned over the years, and I made pretty clear in the first book, was if you hear it, the crazier it is, the more likely that it's true. And the craziest details are usually the ones that are spot on.
Is that
then
is that like, because people talk, I mean, I it's been a while, it's right now here we are in 2022. There's been talk already of Hillary Clinton running again. And what is she really like, and what sort of interactions did you have with her? Is she nice? Is she she's got a very interesting persona on, she seems like she's always on, if I could put it in my best way. She's always on a show or a performance. I never seen an interview where it seems like she just like relaxed, like we are right now. Just like, okay, this is
because if she did relax, nobody would interview her.
So what is she? She's more tense.
I talk about, that's really why I wrote the first book.
Okay.
Listen, it became clear to me as I got close to retirement that she was probably going to run. And I felt I was in a unique position. I protected them. I never, however they conducted themselves was their own business. The only reason I ever testified was because my case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And went all the way to the chief of the Supreme Court. At the time was Rehnquist, and he basically said I had 72 hours to surrender and testify in the grand jury or be prosecuted myself. So I felt like I was in a unique position, and nobody had ever questioned my honesty. And I knew if I wrote that first book that they would, and I was prepared for that. So here's the real Hillary Clinton. What you see on TV in these interviews is a complete. Okay, let me start.
You can cuss. You can cuss, by the way, if you want to.
Okay. Well, I do something.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
So let me start like this. Every politician's public persona is a wee bit different than who they really are, or it's a little bit,
it's tweaked,
packaged.
right? Right.
Yeah, just a little. Like the Bushes, who they're pretty much who they really were.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you now. I didn't protect them, but I would tell you President Obama was pretty much who you saw.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not getting into their policies. I'm just telling you that,
Sure.
the guy that you see on TV who makes you believe that he would just like to walk out of the Oval Office and go to the nearest basketball court or the nearest cheeseburger place, that's who he really is.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's laid back, and, again, it's not about policies. I'm telling you what the personality's like. So Hillary's personality is aloof. She's angry. And here's the thing. She's been propped up her whole career. She worked at a law firm that got most of its business from the state of Arkansas. Her husband was the Attorney General of Arkansas and then the Governor of Arkansas. The movie. Did you ever see the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise?
I know it, but I've not seen it.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So it's about a crooked law firm in Louisiana. That movie about the law firm is based on the Rose Law Firm in Arkansas.
Okay.
That's how crooked they thought they were. or that they, So anyway, so she is aloof. She's angry. She's not competent at all, and she blows up all the time. And I talk about in my first book, Crisis of Character, that she, one time she stood right in front of me, and I'm 6'2", and she's like 5'3" or whatever, and she's yelling and at me and calling me incompetent and an asshole, and I should have been. She should have fired us all, and I just kind of laughed at her, and of course that made her mad,
Yeah.
pissed her off more, and she said, "I'm going to call the chief," and I said, "Well, why don't you just call the director?" And of course, that's what she did,
Yeah.
and so,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
I knew what I was saying was right. And here's the problem: for her, the fact that her husband got elected, she just assumed that made her conqueror queen. And there are rules and regulations, and the U.S. government is enormous, and we got regulations about regulations. And
Yeah.
when it comes to national security, she just couldn't understand how she couldn't bring anybody she wanted into the Oval Office and leave them there by themselves, and you can't do that. So
Mhm.
anyway, so that's who she really is. She's this angry person, and when people say how competent she is, and this happened to me accidentally. When they first got into office, they had this young woman. So it was like 1992. They had this young woman that worked for them, and her last name was Rodham. Now that's Hillary's maiden name.
Yeah.
So this is Hillary's, like, one of her nieces or something.
Okay.
She was working in the White, and she was very young,
Mhm.
and she was a pain in the ass. Never wearing her pass and blah blah blah. And,
Gotcha.
there's the only people in the White House that aren't supposed to have a pass on 100% of the time are the elected president and his immediate family.
Mhm.
Everybody else needs to have a pass on. And so anyway, this I'm talking to this young girl who's related to Hillary, and she says something about the first lady, and I said, "Oh, you knew her in Arkansas?" And she she holds her pass out, and she goes, "Did you read the last name?" And I go, "Oh, okay, so you're related." I said, "Well, I guess that, and of course now I'm busting her chops,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she doesn't, I'm like, oh, I guess that works if you can't get a job any other way." And she, she got all pissed
Yeah.
off, and she goes, "The first lady is one of the most accomplished lawyers from Arkansas," and she said, like, in 19 whatever year,
Right.
88, she was the lawyer of the year. And I go, oh, and I wasn't being facetious at this point. I was like, "Oh, okay. What case did she win? What was the,
Huh. Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you mean?"
Well, what was
I
their
said, "She was
competence?
lawyer of the year. Did she win a case? Did she write a law? Did she?"
Right.
"Well, no, I go, "Oh, so her husband's the governor. She's lawyer of the year. Oh yeah,
Right.
that's not suspicious."
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
stomped off, and so that kind of, showed me. And then over the years, you heard stories of other people that come out, and the most heinous one is when she's a lawyer years. Well, the first one is, um, and today, the modern press today will tell you this isn't true, but I'm telling you it is.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton was a young lawyer in Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal, and they
Okay.
fired her. The Democratic Party that was investigating Republican President Richard Nixon for Watergate, the listening scandal,
Yeah.
hired Hillary Clinton, and they caught her lying and cheating on legal documents, and the chief Democrat fired her. And it's public. You can find the story still, but
Yeah.
they try to deny it. It's real.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
So that's who she starts out to be. And then at some point in her career, when she's working as a lawyer in Arkansas, she defends this guy who was accused of raping like a 13-year-old girl. And in court, there's actually video and audio of her mocking this young girl that says she was raped. And it's clear that she was raped. And because at some point, there's a recording of Hillary Clinton discussing the polygraph test that they gave the guy. And when he passed it, she said, "Well, I'll never, use one of those again."
Uh huh.
Because,
Because she
so
knew. Yeah.
that's who she really is.
I see.
Um, the ideal that, and another, like, more modern example is, when she was Secretary of State, the attack in Benghazi. And, most people that have never been in the military or law enforcement, they'll say, "Well, Libya is a very dangerous place and things happen." And that's true, but you don't walk away and leave your people there. And she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then later in the investigation, all the mistakes that, and it's not even point and blame. you need to point out where things went wrong to keep from repeating them. And so that's the perfect example of who she really is.
Okay.
And when I wrote the first book, I wasn't trying to convince anybody how to vote. Vote for whatever you want. That's the American system, for whoever you want. But just understand what the truth is. And if you
Yeah.
can't believe it from me, then you don't want to really want to know what the truth is.
Then
I got my job by taking a polygraph. Nobody's ever questioned my honesty until I wrote that book. So anyway.
So then what does that say then about their relationship? And by there, I mean Bill and Hillary. Like, what are they like together? What sort of relationship is this? Is this a transactional thing? Is there a truly love type thing? No one seems to talk about Hillary, at least from what I see so far, in this like loving, caring wife, motherly figure. I'm trying to figure out what's
the
going
real
on.
Hillary. Yeah, the real Hillary is not really motherly. I mean, from my perspective. But so again, the public Hillary is what you sort of described there. The real Hillary, their relationship, I'll tell you, is probably more of an agreement. There's a lot of stories that came out of Arkansas from the state police about their tumultuous, violent, at times relationship, and we saw that.
Yeah, you did. Did something happened, right? Did you?
Yeah,
you kind of spoke about that at least once about a vase.
Yeah, I wrote about it in the book. Yeah, okay. She threw a vase at him, and the next morning he had a black eye, and so they were trying to conceal it with makeup. And anyway, so that's who she really is, and she's angry. She can be violent, but the thing of it is, that most importantly, is that she's ridiculous. I mean. When people try to cover for her behavior, they're like, well, she's really a policy wonk. No, she's not. She's not. Her healthcare policy was basically the same policy that Joe Stalin tried to invoke at one time. So, she's not a policy wonk. She's somebody who believes in government control and is very angry. Now, I will say, to be completely honest, is okay. I have seen them at times when they were kind to each other. Now, he is a kind guy. Now, I don't trust him. Listen, he's a guy that you would want to sit down and have a beer with. You would. You would laugh. He would be funny. But I'll tell you what you don't do. You don't let him drive your 27-year-old niece home. You don't leave him alone with anybody. Yeah. That's just that's just who he is.
Is he vindictive, or is this not a guy that you can cross?
He's a predator.
There's this. Well, I mean, we said that he's a predator. I mean, there is a certain meme that's going across essentially the times now. We know with hashtag Clinton body count and all this other stuff. Like these are, we still live in the realm of conspiracy, right? Because it's impossible for a normal citizen to even confirm anything. Yeah, or comprehend it, exactly. And so with that being the case, and when you're saying that Hillary's angry, it makes me think if there is any truth to any of these conspiracies or any of these, these what do you call those allegations?
Yeah,
they're going to be vindictive to some certain degree, or scared, or no one gets killed. In that sense.
Are they vindictive? Yes, they are.
Are they? Yeah.
Yes, they are. But see, they're vindictive. They're vindictive in a way. So Bill Clinton probably has never challenged anybody in public. That's what Hillary's job was.
I see.
When Bill Clinton got caught with a woman, or in a couple of cases he's been accused of raping them or sexually assaulting them, it's Hillary who goes and intimidates them. And here's the thing, in this country, we loosely use at times when a Republican or a conservative is accused of stepping over the line with a woman, the mentality here is believe every woman. When it's Bill Clinton or another Democrat, they trash the person, that they call them names. Monica Lewinsky complains that, during the scandal, people were calling her a whore and a slut. And it wasn't conservatives that were calling her that. It was Democrats. And when Jennifer Flowers came forward, Jennifer Flowers and Paula Jones came forward with their allegations, uh, one of the Clinton spokespersons said, "Well, that's what you get when you drag $100 bill through a trailer park." But nobody ever asked him what was he doing in the trailer park. You know why? So
Yeah.
anyway, so they are vindictive. And as far as the body count goes, I'm going to tell you. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm going to tell you a story and then tell
Yeah.
you how I see it.
Yeah.
So in 1991, George Herbert Walker Bush is still president. Bill Clinton is rumored to run. It's early in '91. He hasn't officially announced yet, but it's probably going to happen anyway. I'm protecting President Bush, and he's in Arkansas. Excuse me, he is in. We are in Arkansas? Yeah, we're in Arkansas on the Tennessee border, and or we're in Tennessee on the Arkansas border. I think we're in Arkansas on the Tennessee border, and President Bush is having dinner at a barbecue place, and with some friends, local people, and as a matter of fact, a couple of years later, I was on the same street at a different barbecue place with Bill Clinton. But anyway, so President Bush is there, and I'm standing post like whatever street the restaurant's on. My post is the next street, and myself and about 10 other officers and agents are controlling the entrance to that street. Anyway, I am teamed up with a local Arkansas sheriff, and we're using his car to as a blocking vehicle, and we've been together for 5 or 6 hours already, and we're talking. Very nice guy, and he has a copy of the paper, and the sun's gone down a little bit and things have calmed down, so I'm sitting in his car taking a break, drinking some water, and I'm reading the paper, and it's a story about this governor of Arkansas talking about running. And I said, "Hey," and the story is not just about him running; it's about the scandals from Arkansas and his behavior supposedly. And so I start reading these stories, and he's supposedly got connections to cocaine traffickers and prostitutes and blah blah blah, and you name it, and people dying. And so I'm talking to this deputy, and I'm like, "Hey, I can't believe this. Just these accusations. There's no way." He goes, "Let me tell you something, Gary." He goes, "My daddy grew up down the street from Bill Clinton's mother."
Oh, wow.
And he says, "I'm going to tell you something flat out." He goes, "Listen to me. No matter what you hear, no matter how crazy it is, you believe it, and you act accordingly."
Wow.
You believe it. And this is where I got this from. He said, "The crazier it sounds, the more likely that it's 100% accurate." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "I'm going to tell you a story, Gary." He says, there's a sheriff in Arkansas, not this guy's boss, but another sheriff department in Arkansas, who for years had a glass jar. This guy telling me the story. He had a glass jar on his desk, and in the jar was a man's testicles.
Okay.
So I go, oh, like you just said. I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Those are a man's testicles. There's a guy who supposedly sexually assaulted one of Bill Clinton's distant cousins in Arkansas.
Oh my God.
And those are his testicles.
Wow.
He's still alive.
Oh my God.
And after whoever supposedly, cut him off, they dumped him at a hospital. And so the guy told me the woman's name. And so a couple of years later, or the next year, or a year and a half after the election, and the staff starts coming in, guess who I meet?
Oh no. Okay.
This staggering looking, beautiful young blonde woman with the same name. Right. I won't say her name, but
sure, of course.
So is it true or not? I don't know. Does it get your attention? Yeah, sure. So, now the body count thing. So there's a lot of people that worked around them who, I don't know if you ever heard this term before, but when they talk about the body count, the people from Arkansas used to refer to it as when somebody around the Clintons would die, and they would, it would automatically, no matter what the circumstances were, there would be a story that would come out that would say it was a suicide. And they started calling it the one car Arkansas suicide.
Okay.
They find a guy on the side of the road in a car accident. There's black and red paint on his white car on the front, and there's paint on the back of the car. He's got 2 bullet holes in the back of his head, and they're saying it was a suicide.
Right.
So I question I definitely, it's enough. From the investigation side, it's enough to look at.
Mhm.
I'm still alive. That's good.
Yeah.
So,
The logistics of that just blows my mind, though. That's one of the things that I've always had, and we had another discussion on another podcast. Just another
yeah,
two guys that are footballers as well. Where it's like
right,
I don't understand. I mean, obviously, we live in the post Epstein world now, right? Because now that's a whole
right,
other thing where people are having a hard time
right,
with the official story and stuff like this, and it's like
right.
powerful people are involved, and people are dying or being suicided or committing suicide.
Yes,
Regardless, it all starts to look a little crazy. But the logistics of it
yes,
is one of the things that makes it so hard to comprehend as a normal citizen.
yeah.
Because
So I can
you're
help you with that.
okay, please do, because I don't understand how someone could put a hit out. I mean, because just the
Well,
idea, you
it's
would be too scared as a president to even utter.
well. First of all, he didn't start out being a president. He started out
Yeah.
as this young guy in Arkansas whose mother. Now, this never became public.
Mhm.
The guy that tried to release the book with this story in it, they squashed him. I don't mean physically, but they kept the book
Sure,
from being
sure.
published. But if you went down to Arkansas in the area that they're from, and he's not actually from Hope, Arkansas. The town of Hope is down the road from where he's from.
Okay.
But anyway, so he, his mother ran a string of prostitutes out of a bar. That's who his mother was,
Mhm.
Virginia Kelly. I met her.
All right.
Now, that doesn't mean it's true, but I'm telling you that everybody that lives in Arkansas believes it's true.
Okay.
So, anyway, setting that aside, um, he grew up without a father. His father, not until um, not until he got elected, did they know, and I don't even think his mother knew
Mhm.
that his father had another family out in California.
Oh, wow.
Well, you're probably too young to remember this, but so
Yeah,
Bill
yeah.
Clinton wasn't in office, I don't think, a year. And this guy in California comes out and says, I'm Bill Clinton's half brother. And he looked just like him. He was a plumber out in California. He
Uh-huh.
looked like him. So instead of, first they tried to say, well, that's not true. Well, but it was true. And they did some investigation. And the guy said, listen, here's what I know. Your father came out here, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, in a PR move, the president went and met this guy, and it was a
Oh,
true story.
okay.
And of course they spun it off as, oh, it's sweet and it's not Bill's fault and that's not who he really is, and but that's kind of who he really was. They were very good at spinning shit in the gold,
Right. Yeah.
and um, and they're very good at making counter accusations, and like I said, when they accused Jennifer Flowers of to accuse her of lying when she had the tape. They accused her of lying at first. Then when she had the tapes, they had to give you a plausible way to believe that it wasn't true. So they took a voice audio and made it look like somebody else, that Larry King was having an affair, and so that must be what happened.
All right. Yeah.
And the truth of the matter was, it was true. He did have an affair with Flowers, and so anyway. Um, and the same thing with the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Of course, they denied it. They denied it. And at one point, when myself and everybody else started, they started finding out that the Starr investigation that
Mhm.
was investigating the president for his behavior, discovered that the uniform division keeps a log of everybody, a book of everybody that goes into the Oval Office that's not on the schedule. So if you worked at the White House and you were in the military and you were a communications guy and you came up and you said, and I'd know who you were, and you say, hey, Gary, I got to go in and do the phone check. And I'd say, sure. And you'd have your pass out. I don't need to look at it because I know who you are, but I would look at it. I'd write your name in the book. You'd walk in, I'd take the rope down. You'd walk into the Oval Office. I would follow you in. You would go to all the phones, pick them up, call the communication center and say your name and phone check. Fine, loud and clear, click, and you'd do every phone, and then you'd walk out, and I'd put the time that you left. So anyway, when they found that out, they, you know, the White House decided that they were going to, at one point, they were going to try to spin that Monica Lewinsky was not coming to see Bill Clinton. She
Uh-huh.
was having an affair with either me or one of the other UD
Oh
guys that
my
worked
god.
there. So
Yeah.
that's who they, And then eventually it all fell apart when, well, it was falling apart anyway because part of the problem was Monica Lewinsky was telling everybody about her affair with the president,
Okay.
friends,
Yeah.
and of course anybody that worked there knew the rumors, and they saw it, and it was happening on the road, and there were other women,
Mhm.
and it just blew up in his face all the time. There were incidences that became public of her blowing up Monica and other things that happened, and so it was
Sorry,
you couldn't.
before you keep going, did
No,
Hillary
go ahead.
and Monica ever pass each other in that?
Yeah,
Like,
sure. Yeah.
and Hillary obviously would know about all these rumors. Did she openly
So
hate her,
that
or
well, so that is, yeah. So funny thing, you should say that.
okay?
So this is the one time I'll say my gut feeling based
Uh-huh.
on what I saw. This is the one time that Hillary, she didn't believe it.
Oh
She
wow.
did not.
Okay.
She did not believe her husband would have an affair with a girl that was 2 years older than their daughter,
Oh wow.
because she
Okay.
knew of the other women that
Uh-huh.
were taking care of his needs there. Most of them were staff. Some of them were staff members that worked
Oh
there.
wow.
One was
Okay.
a reporter. Well, and you know how she found out?
No.
He
No.
didn't
Yeah.
tell her.
Uh-huh.
His lawyer. He sent his lawyer over to tell her. And I would. I'm going to give you a good
Okay.
homework. I'm going to give you a
Yeah.
homework project for you and your listeners.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have to do a little research, it won't take too long,
Mm.
with Google. So you Google the impeachment, the
Hmm.
scandal, the time frame, right? And then
Sure.
like go on YouTube and Google Bill Clinton getting off helicopter, and you're
Okay.
looking for this. You're looking for a video of them getting off the helicopter, and I know
Hmm.
it's there because I found it too.
Right.
And it's around the time frame of the scandal, and
Okay.
clearly it's after the scandal. They're getting off the helicopter, and she gets off first, and she is just stiff as a board, angry, and they come down the steps, and he's just, he's talking to Chelsea and trying to be a dad, and he looks up and sees the reporters, the press is out there on the
Uh-huh.
south lawn,
Right.
and he reaches over to grab her hand, and I'm telling you, he grabs her hand, and it
Nothing.
just
Nothing.
like grabbing a dead fish,
Yeah.
and the look on her face, you're like, at this point, if she hauled off and belted him, I wouldn't blame her. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Right.
because she was just told, earlier, a few days before, that it was true, that
Okay.
he did have the affair with her, and that there's DNA, and he
Right.
and he almost, I don't know if ever heard this, but he almost had to do a lineup. He
Oh
almost had to
no.
do a penis lineup.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. No, I did.
because part of this, the Lewinsky thing got out of control and got out of the box, so to speak, because what he did to Paula Jones. He
Mhm.
allegedly pulled his pants down and
Mhm.
tried to force Paula Jones to give him oral sex,
I see. Okay.
and she, refused, but she swore up and down she could identify his penis
Okay.
because he suffers from a thing called, forgive me if I get it wrong, but
Sure.
it sounds like Peyronie's disease.
Uh-huh.
Basically, there's a hook in your penis,
I see. Okay.
right?
So she
And
can
there was
identify it
something
easily.
else. There was something else about his penis that she could identify.
Mhm. Mhm.
So anyway,
Yeah. Well, I
so
took you off of that subject because you were. I don't know if you've finished exactly what you were saying about the body count thing, because where
yeah,
I was
so okay,
really
I'll go.
going.
Yeah, I'll go back to that. Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the body count thing. Yes, I believe some of it's true.
Mhm.
I believe it's true because, listen, Fidel Castro hasn't lost that many friends. You know what I mean? Like, and I get accidents happen,
Sure.
and but I saw some of it sort of close up. So Bill Clinton had a guy that worked for him. His name was Ron Brown, and
Mhm.
Ron Brown was a politician, and I'm sure he was a politician that he might have had some bad character issues. He had affairs to himself, but I would tell you that when Ron Brown walked into a room, and whether you were the Secretary of State or the uniform division officer, leaning up, hiding up against the wall, he walked over and he would look you in the eye and say, "How you doing? How's your day going?
Uh-huh.
Hey, hey, I heard you got a new dog. What we were talking about the last time? What was your favorite? Just us. I
Yeah.
didn't like his politics, of course, but so what? He was a nice guy.
Okay.
He was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Commerce, and he died in this very mysterious plane crash.
I see.
And on a mountain, I want you have to look this up. It might have been Croatia, but it might have been
Okay.
one of the other countries next to it.
Right.
But the plane goes down in a place that you can't get to right away.
Mhm.
And he's one of the few people on there. The whole Air Force crew is lost. And immediately there was rumors and scandals. And
Uh-huh.
supposedly a rescuer, when he got there, said that this guy had a bullet in the back of his head.
Oh man.
So who knows? Do I believe some of it's true? Yes.
But then to
So
answer the other part of my question, because I actually don't know if you've answered that part yet. How is that happening? It doesn't make sense.
so I'll tell
Is
you
it
how it happens.
okay?
I'll tell you how it happens. There's a guy named Dick Morris
Mhm.
who was a friend of Hillary Clinton's. He's a Republican strategist,
All right.
and they were friends. And they hired him. Hillary hired him to help Bill with these scandals. Did you ever hear the term triangulation?
No.
Okay, so um, I want to bring a soccer team to your hometown, another soccer team, and I'm going to do it no matter what, right? And you don't want me to do it because you won the soccer team. So I'm going to make up stories about your soccer team. I'm going to question your accounting ability. I'm going
Mhm.
to whatever. And then I'm going to do that in your hometown where I want to put the soccer team, right?
Sure.
Then I'm going to go to the town that the headquarters of the soccer organization is, and I'm going to say nothing but good things about you. And then I'm going to go to another place, let's say, across the country, and I'm going to say where there might be the opportunity to put a soccer team. I'm going to say bad things about the organization so you're saying three different things,
Mm.
triangulation, to cover up what your real point is.
Wow.
In other words, and this
Misinformation,
comes usually come
misinformation,
right.
essentially.
So I'm
Mm.
going to cut. I'm going to cut. A president's trying to run for office, and he's going to cut. I don't know,
Funding
farming
to
subsidies.
okay.
Funding for farming, we'll say
Mhm.
subsidies, right? Well, he's going to go somewhere where there isn't any farms. He's going to bash farming. Then he's going to go where the farms are and tell them that he is, and he'll do this literally, I've seen him do it the same day. I mean, you can get whiplash from following
No
these
way.
people around.
Yeah.
And Dick Morris taught him how to do it. And so anyway, so Dick Morris has a falling out with the Clintons later on in life, and he writes a book about them, sort of like I did.
Okay.
And Dick Morris tells you flat out, and it fits right into what I saw was Hillary Clinton had a group of thugs. They were guys from Arkansas
Oh.
that were thugs, and if you were getting in their way, for instance, when Jennifer Flowers came forward with that story, these guys showed up at her house.
Mhm.
Her cat disappeared, and then somebody slashed her tires.
I see.
And then one day she was at the mall or the grocery store, and this guy rams a cart into her, and he says, "If you think that hurt, wait do you keep talking about Bill Clinton." And then he
Uh-huh.
walked out of the store. So Dick Morris tells you
I
that
see.
she had these people. I witnessed in the first 4-year administration of the Clintons, nobody comes into the White House that is not either scheduled, or if they're not scheduled, they have to be screened on the spot, and then their names written in these books that I told you about. There's one in the Oval Office, and there's one in the mansion on the ground floor by that elevator and staircase I was talking about earlier.
Right.
And we got a phone call. 4 guys are coming in from Arkansas. Their car will be swept outside the gate. You're not to screen them. You're not to record their names, and you're going to let them in. Now, I was outside the Oval Office. My buddy was working this post where they were coming in, and he called me up and asked me what to do. And I said, well, follow the directions, but I would certainly take their physical descriptions and write it down, at least for
Yeah.
your own notes, because
Sure.
this will come back and blow up in our faces.
Right.
And when these guys showed up, they looked like they were out of central casting for a Hollywood movie about the mafia.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they had slacks on,
Yeah.
they had white shirts with their, the collars open.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had jackets on. They were driving like an old Ford LTD. 4 big guys, like
Yeah.
big, like I said,
Right.
I'm
Classic
6'2".
thugs. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what they looked like.
I see.
And so, what does that tell you? Put that together, and yes, I do believe
I see.
they rough people up. I do believe that people have died because they had relationships with the Clintons. I can't prove any of it,
Sure.
and as long as I'm not one of the statistics, I guess I can live with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I mean, hearing that gives more context to
Yeah,
the room because it just it's hard to fathom, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's interesting to have a podcast like this is because I would never get this opportunity to get and to better understand the worldview, politics, and all these things. And by no means am I up to date on all my politics and stuff like that, and what's really going on with everything
right.
else.
Sure.
My
Who is?
general, I know exactly. My general idea and basis within it is to do my best to affect the world around me and to become the best person I can around me and influence the world through that, rather than necessarily just hoping that a president,
Right.
a senator, or a mayor is going to
Right.
fix my problems
They're not.
for me, right? Yeah, I don't,
They're not.
yeah. So
Yeah.
well, that takes me into because I definitely want to get into some of the Air Force,
Yeah. Sure.
the Air Marshal stuff too
Air
as well.
marshals.
But
Yeah.
before we go there, just to close stuff out on politics, do you, given that the Trump presidency was one of the most, let's say, exciting, dividing,
Yeah.
just all the stuff that happened there, and with the Capitol riots and all this stuff, what's your take on everything that happened there? Or do you talk to people within? Did it feel when the Trump presidency happened? Because I mean, if these are people, and for instance, if you can go into the White House, and I know that these people who are lifers at the White House, they don't speak,
Well,
because, but
they speak to me.
sure, I mean, yeah. So I'm guessing that you have friends and you guys talk, and it's like you can get a
Yeah.
general sense of what was the White House like. What do you feel that it's like, or was like during that time when Trump was
Yeah.
president?
Yeah. Well, I can give you a really good description because
Sure,
I talk to them all the time.
sure.
So they loved it. They love the Trumps. They're a very nice family. They're very gracious. They're generous to a fault.
Okay.
Uh, they every function and the Bush family was similar to this. Every function that they have, when they order food or decide what they're gonna, they order food within mind to feed everybody in the Secret Service and the military
Hmm.
that's there. And that's not what everybody does, and it's not necessary,
I
but they
see.
do it.
I see.
And they're very kind and they're very generous and so and there's always a learning curve for one thing you have to remember about protection, and this is anywhere in the world, no matter what the country or the language is. Every family that you protect, you change them, and
Hmm.
every family that you meet and protect, they change you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the Clintons were excuse me, Clinton. The Trumps were very nice people. Everybody liked them. They were businesslike, but they were kind.
Hmm.
And as far as the riots at the Capitol, so from my perspective, having
Sure.
worked in Washington D.C. and
Yeah.
actually literally defended the White House from riots, that
Okay.
really wasn't a riot. Like that
Okay.
was a protest,
Sure.
and so people get out of line. Now I do realize, and I'm not making light of
Yeah.
Ashley
Yeah.
Babbitt, who was shot. I'm not, and
Uh
it's
huh.
terrible, and I don't know all the details, but I
Right.
will tell you this: that you might not know this. So and I'll start with the Secret Service.
Uh huh.
If you, when I was in the Secret Service Uniform Division years ago, the Congress wrote laws. They structured our use of force,
Hmm.
our ability to use weapons and tactics against the populace under certain circumstances. You are allowed to shoot an unarmed person trying to breach the White House.
Okay. So
It's
breach the White House, not the Capitol
well,
building,
yeah,
or is
but
that, or you?
yeah. So that same law
Huh.
was adopted by the Capitol Police too.
Oh, okay.
So if you breach that perimeter, and we'll use me as an example.
Mhm.
If I can articulate why I was in fear for my life and the life of my protectee, and the building itself and the continuity of government, if I can articulate that, then that's what I have to be able to do to use force.
Mhm.
Force starts out as stop, don't come in here. I use my hands. I use a baton.
Mhm.
Then I pull my pistol out.
I see.
And if I use my pistol, my firearm, or a shotgun, or a sub gun, or whatever, um, I have to be able to articulate just what I told you. I was in fear for my life because as this person was coming through that glass, climbing over chairs, I heard reports over the radio that it was happening in 4 or 5 other places. We were under attack, being breached. I repelled the attack to the best of my ability. I felt that deadly force was necessary to protect our protectee and to stop this heinous crime. I was in fear for my life,
Uh-huh.
and that's what you have to be able to articulate. And I don't know the officer that shot her if he can articulate that. I guess he can because he
Yeah,
hasn't been charged.
I see.
But it is not against the law under those circumstances to use a firearm against somebody who that's one of the reasons I feel like they're trying to make it look like this huge riot. It
Uh-huh.
really wasn't. It was a
Okay.
protest that went bad, and
Right.
somebody lost their life. And I don't know all the details. I wasn't there.
Sure.
So, but I've been in so many of them, and I know the law. Everything I know about the White House, almost 99% of it translates to the Capitol and some other government buildings.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't
Sure.
believe during that time, even in the U.S. is what I mean. In general, it's
Right.
hard
Yeah.
now with the way news cycles move and all of the chaos of that time. Anyway, to have any idea
Yeah.
what's going on, to be
Right.
honest. But moving on to you as an
Sure.
air marshal,
Yeah.
because that's another thing where we kind of catch some stuff from movies, right? So like,
Yes.
let me give you my best assessment of what I think an air
Yeah.
marshal is doing. You're
Right.
wearing, obviously, they probably look more or less like you, right? These are guys, or 6'2". They look like they might have served in some sort of military capacity. That's my guess.
Sometime. Yeah. You're right.
And
You're close.
plain clothes, normal clothes. I bet you that there is a place on the plane where you guys normally sit. You guys obviously have to be in the aisles. You probably are strategically placed on the plane. So
Yes.
for whatever reason, and it wouldn't make sense to me to put one air marshal on a plane. So I bet that there's always more than one if there is an air marshal on a plane.
Yeah. So everything
Yeah.
everything that I'm acknowledging is public knowledge.
Okay.
There are multiple teams,
Yeah.
and you have kind of hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
So let me ask you this though: if you're uncomfortable answering this, don't.
Sure.
But how tall are you?
5'10".
5'10".
Yeah.
And what do you go? $150?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
150 pounds?
yeah. A little bit more than 150. Yeah.
Okay,
About.
I'm just guessing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you'd be a great air marshal.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Better than me. You know why?
Okay.
Because I'm 6'2",
Mhm.
and on my best day in the last 15 years, I've never weighed less than 100 or 270 pounds.
I got you.
So
Okay.
so I'm a biggin,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I got you.
I get my I use that size and strength as one of my best tools.
Sure.
Um, where I did a lot of running when I was younger, I do more strength training and
Gotcha.
and fighting skills, and so yeah, you're on the plane. It's cops on planes. It's
Hmm.
not anything like the movie, and so I'll give you two good descriptions, and I'll do two at one time. You want to know what it's like to be in the Secret Service?
Mhm.
Go stand in your backyard for 8 hours. Take a 30-minute break. Go to the bathroom. Eat
Yeah.
something really fast. Answer all your messages, and then go stand out there for another 8 hours. As an air marshal, the next time you take a long flight somewhere, look around and just as the people you see people in the airport on the plane, which one's going to try to cut my head off?
Right.
Which one snuck a knife on?
Yeah.
Maybe the pilot is crazy and wants to kill us all.
Sure. Wow.
This is what goes through you. Basically, an air marshal is a guy with a gun, a collapsible baton,
Uh-huh.
at least 2 spare magazines, a
Right.
small knife, a partner, at least one partner, depending on how
Yeah.
big the plane, how far you're going, and you have to be able to go from the conversation you and I are having to yelling "oh shit" and then fighting for everybody else's life,
Yeah.
because you're not fighting for your life, you're fighting for that pilot's life, because that pilot has to keep, gravity is not our friend, and gravity will take that plane down if you don't help that pilot keep it up.
Yeah.
So, you have to, and it's not, there's not a requirement, although I don't necessarily agree with this mentality, but there's not a requirement that you be former military or you have any special fighting skills. They can teach you what you need to know, but you do have to have this quirky ability where you can get yourself to the point where I'm not worried about my safety. I know that if I have to defend that plane, that I could die,
Right.
but I do not want my partner on the Oprah Winfrey show telling everybody how I died. So I'm
Yeah.
going to fight like a rabid dog.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight like that. That joke about, there's Noah's Ark and three monkeys are getting on the plane or getting on the ark.
Yeah.
And you fight like you're the third monkey. That's who you got to be. You got to be a rabbit, and you have to understand what it is you're doing. If you have to defend that flight deck on a plane, there's going to be blood. There's going to be screaming. And
Right.
innocent people will at least get injured and probably killed.
Does that,
But
so
you have to.
then,
Go ahead.
sorry to cut you off, but like,
No, it's fine.
did you, I heard an anecdote that you kind of said, and I caught the end of it, so I'd love to hear you talk
Yeah.
about it now. Where I think there was
Yep.
maybe 4 guys. I don't remember where they were from necessarily, but they were causing some trouble on a flight, and the
Yes.
way that you had to deal with them was actually more psychological.
Yes.
These were almost like psychological games that you had to play with them to first de-escalate or maybe escalate or
Yes.
get them to understand that the threat is bigger
Yes.
than they think it is. And so you
That's right.
really like, it was like a masterpiece kind of put together, because what you're describing now also, as well, as like, of course you're gonna have to defend and fight, but
Right.
that's once things have already gone past that point and it's just a brutal, animalistic, savage fight. So
Right. Yeah. So you're describing verbal judo.
okay.
Verbal judo is how it starts out.
All right.
So
Could you tell that? Yeah, I mean, if you remember
yeah.
that anecdote, yeah.
No, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm flying from Philadelphia International Airport in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, East Coast of the United States, to Manchester, England.
That's right.
And just so you're clear, I don't really follow soccer, but I know who
Yeah,
Manchester United is. And
yeah.
what's the other team? We're down the road.
Manchester. Well, there's Manchester City
Yeah.
is the other team
Yes.
right there.
And
Yeah.
don't mix them up, or you will get your ass beat.
Mm,
Yeah. So anyway,
so true.
so I don't really follow soccer,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't get me wrong. Any athletic thing I think is great.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say I don't really follow it. I don't follow it religiously,
some.
but I do follow it. Well, we have here in Philadelphia, or near where I live,
Yeah.
near
You got
Philadelphia,
the
we
Union.
have the Union.
Yeah,
So,
your head coach there. I played with the Jim Curtin, who is the
you're
head
kidding.
coach. Yeah, no, we played on the Chicago
Oh,
Fire together. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So I when their games are local
Mhm.
and my friends go to the games and freeze their butts off, I watch from my house. So anyway, so we're going to England, Manchester, England. And so when I get to the airport, I'm checking in. And we walk through the terminal like everybody else at first. We look around. We have to do some observation stuff. And then I just coincidentally, I walk up to the gate agent, and she knows who I am. I'm sorry, the gate agent. And she knows who I am by now. And she says, hey, there was this weird thing going on earlier where these 6 guys came in. They were drawing attention to themselves. She said they had British passports, but some of them had accents that sounded like they were from the Middle East. And I'm like, okay, okay. I just, I don't, whatever. I don't want to blow her off, because the people that work at the airport are some of your greatest sources of information. And, so anyway, I said, okay. And so I go through, I go around security, and now I'm on the inside of the airport, inside the secured area. And, I see this TSA guy, a screener that I know, and he knows I'm an Air Marshal. So I walk over to say hi to him, and he goes, hey, did you hear about these guys, these 6 guys with British passports? And I go, yeah. He goes, 5 of them look like they're from the Middle East, and the one guy looks like and sounds like he's from the UK. And I'm like, yeah, I did. He goes, yeah, they're drawing attention to themselves. They're buffooning and goofing around. I'm like, okay. So then I go to the gate where we're leaving from, and I hear the same story. So the rest of the team shows up, and we brief each other, and so 2 of us are going to get on the plane pre-board with the crew, and the other 2 are going to come on with the passengers. So I pre-board with the team leader, And so when we get on board, the 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 airline personnel that's on the plane, they're called the GSC, the ground security coordinator. They tell us the same story. So then the crew shows up, they brief, they're doing their thing. We're getting ready to board. The pilot pulls me aside and said, or pulls my partner aside and says, um, he's the team leader, and tells him, what's going on. And of course, my team leader knows what's going on, but he's not the most outgoing guy. So anyway, like he turns to me and goes, "Hey, do you want to handle this?" And I go, "Sure, absolutely." So I go up to the pilot and I'm like, "Yeah, I heard about it. Let's just see what happens when they come on." So sure enough, the gate agent comes down and says, "These guys are out here and they're
Out of
behaving
control. Yeah.
oddly." And then the pilot says that he met them in the air, that the one guy stopped him before he got on the plane and said he wanted to see the flight deck. And of course, this is like 2009.
Okay.
And since 9/11, we've had two more attacks. We had the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber.
Hmm.
Tensions are high. And
Right.
so anyway. So I said, okay, well, I'll keep an eye out. So anyway, these guys come on pretty early and they're goofing around. And so I get up and I'm in first class. And so the plane we're on is this giant Airbus 330. And there's a huge kitchen in between the two sections. So you can kind of see what's going on and still kind of hide.
Hmm.
So I'm watching what they're doing, and they are acting like jackasses. They're goofing around. They're, throwing their bags in. They're saying, the one guy who, for the lack of a better description, I'll say is English or
Hmm.
British.
Hmm.
He's talking to them in English, and they're answering him back, which sounds like to me either Arabic or Farsi, or
Hmm.
And so anyway, um, the flight attendant tells them to sit down. They're laughing at her. They're mocking her. So the pilot comes back out, and clearly he's talked to the lead flight attendant, and he says, "We're not taking off until you know that my crew's safe."
Yeah, I see.
So I believe my crew's safe. I said, "Okay." So I get up and I go over to the team leader and I said, "Listen, I'm going to get these guys' passports. I'm going to run their names." So this is probably what you heard. So again, these guys are they're already making fun of all authority, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I walk over there and I'm wearing a t-shirt. I have a sleeveless vest on, like you would see somebody wear on an American golf course, like
Yeah.
a,
Sure.
a
Sure.
nylon vest with no sleeves,
Yeah. Yeah.
covering up my equipment. So I walk over there and I go, "Hey, how you doing?" "Good." "Oh, what do you want? Who are you?"
Mhm.
"Oh, and I go, "Hey, I need to see your passports." And the guy says, this the one guy, not the British guy, but one of the other
Yeah.
guys, and he says, uh, "Who are you to ask me for my passports? We're not giving you blah blah." It's going on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go, "Well, I'll tell you who I am. I'm the guy that asks you for your passports, and then when you refuse, you swim back to England."
Yeah.
And the British guy, who didn't look like he was Middle Eastern or sound like he
Uh-huh.
was either, stands up, apologizes to me, and turns around to them and said, "You assholes! I told you this was going to blow up in our faces. Give me your passports." And the guy says, "I'm not giving you." So 5 of them give me their passports.
Sure.
This guy's not going to do it. I said, "No, listen, just so you're clear." And I said it just like this. I said, "Just so you're clear, I will get your passport, but when I do, you'll be unconscious and in handcuffs."
Yeah.
And he goes, uh, "Are you threatening me?" I go, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "Well, I want to see some ID." I said, "Nope." And I said, "I tell you what, if I got to pull my ID out, you guys literally are not leaving the United States
Right.
for the
Yeah.
next 72 hours
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
easily."
Wow.
So he's like, all right. So he gives it to me.
Uh-huh.
So as I go to walk back, I look at the open door, like the cabin door, where people are coming on, and people are trickling on.
Mhm.
And I see two customs and border officers there in uniform, and they're deporting somebody. This is a separate issue. They're
Mhm.
sending somebody back to the UK. It's no big deal. They just hold them there and then basically they're the last person to get on. Or when they let the person being deported get on, they have to stay at the door. So I walk over to them and I go, "Hey, listen, I'm working on something. I can't really," and they know who I am. I know
Okay.
these guys.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm working on something. We might have a little problem. I could really use you guys staying here, and because of your uniforms. if you could just, even if it's time for you to leave, could you stay here? He said, absolutely.
Sure.
So I went up to the captain. I said, I got their passports. I'm running their names. So I call the control center. I walk them through what's going on, and I give them all the information. And they're all British passports, and they're real passports, and so anyway. So a couple of minutes goes by, and the my phone rings, and it's the control center, and he's like, "Who did you tell? Who did you call besides us?" I go, "Nobody." He said, "We just got a phone call from the head of the FBI counterterrorism." I'm like, "Well, he didn't get no information from me."
Yeah.
And then I looked up, and the pilot was standing in the doorway of the cockpit, the flight deck, and he's on the phone. I'm like, you know what? Let me go talk to the pilot. I have a suspicion here. So, so I said, I'll call you right back. Please don't, So I hang up the phone. And I go back. I go, hey, Captain, did you call somebody? He goes, yeah, I called my neighbor. I go, who's your neighbor? And he told me his name. I forget it now.
Yeah.
And he goes, he said, yeah, well, he's the head of the FBI. No, he said he works for the FBI. I said, oh, you mean he's the head of the FBI counterterrorism unit?
More importantly,
yeah, he is. I go, okay, so you called him. He has now raised this up to the level of like a secretary of the department level.
Right.
And, he goes, oh, well, I didn't know it was a big deal. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, no problem. I'll fix this. And so I go back, I get away from him. I call the control center. I said, okay, it's his neighbor. Listen, let that go. So anyway, they said, listen, we have information. So these guys have been in the country for X amount of days. They went to Las Vegas. They were in Las Vegas for a transportation convention. They work at a limousine company together in the UK, and their trip is legitimate. But everywhere they've been behaving like this, and even all the airports that they've been into, and people have reported their behavior. And so I said, okay. And they said, what do you want us to do? And I said, well, if there's no warrants or anything, I said, what are you doing from your end? He said, well, we're contacting British authorities right now. And I said, well, that's fine. And I know what that means. When we land, they'll be there to interview them.
Okay.
So I go back over to give them and I tell the control center, I said, listen, I feel like we've got this. I think it's fine. I'm going to go put the fear of God in them.
Yeah.
And if that blows up in my face, you'll hear about it. I said, just so you know, there's 2 customs and border guys at the door of the airplane handling something else. They know that I'm working on something, and they are not leaving here until I give them the heads up.
Right.
Until I tell them I'm okay. And they said, great, fine. So I go back over to these guys, and so I'm holding their IDs and their passports, and I go, hey, so you went to Las Vegas. So you were reported in Las Vegas. You were reported in Arizona for your behavior. And now, at least a couple of you really do want to go back to England today, and you're probably not going. Right. And they're like, what? You can't do that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can. And so, and I still haven't identified myself. So the one guy, the sort of, British guy or whatever you want to call him.
Make the peace, yeah.
Yeah, he's like starts berating them, and I go, here's the deal. I'm going to give you your passports back for now. During this flight, you are not going to bother the flight attendant. You're not going to talk to them. I said, if blood is squirting out of your arm, don't ask the flight attendant for a Band-Aid. If you have to get up to go to the bathroom, get up to go to the bathroom. Don't get up to the bathroom is empty. If I have to come back here during the flight, I said, have you ever been to Newfoundland, Canada? They're like, no. I said, well, that's where we're going to land. Because we make a big loop up, close to the North Pole, and then
right back,
over Ireland, and that's where we're going to land. And you're not going to like it there because first of all, it's cold. So anyway, so I say a couple more things to them. The one guy tries to challenge me, and so I hammer him a little bit, and then I give him the IDs back. And I said, just so you know, or just before I give him the IDs back, I said, listen, understand this: when the plane lands, don't get up. British authorities want to talk to you on the plane before you get off. Right. And they're like, what does that mean? I go, well, I'll tell you what it means. When this plane takes off from the United States, when the door closes, we're under United States authority. When it lands in England, we're still under United States authority. When that door opens up, you're under the crown,
Right.
and they can do whatever they want, and they don't care.
Yeah.
So you really want to understand British law enforcement and security and anti-terrorism, mess up on this flight home.
Right.
So that was about, around what I said, maybe not the exact words.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I give them the passports back, and then I went and sat down. So, we take off. It was a long flight. We get there, normally it's a like 6-7 hour flight. It was
Sure.
a
I've
little
done
more
it
than 7
a
hours.
bunch.
So we
Yeah.
land, and, so everybody's getting off, and I look to make sure they're still there, and they are, and they don't look healthy at all. They look, they look
They're scared
scared.
now. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. When all the passengers got off, 6 of the biggest British thug law enforcement in suits, and I mean very nice suits. They look great.
Sure. Of course. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what, they didn't have 1 ounce of. They were pissed.
Yeah.
It's late at night. They're probably still there because of these jackasses.
Yeah. Exactly.
Man, they walked in there over there. They took all their passports. They didn't say a word to them. They said, "Get your bags." They searched them. When they got off the plane, they searched them, and then that was the last I saw of them.
Yeah.
I hope they're still okay.
Yeah.
But, that was, I think, I want to say that
crazy.
was 2000, somewhere between 2006 and 2009, probably closer to 2009.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because those are the stories about air marshals that stuff like that. That's what you guys are there for. I mean, obviously to maintain this sort of peace, to make sure stuff like this, because who knows if these guys, you really don't know. I mean, it sounds kind of innocent, but
no, it was.
Not,
so here's the thing.
Right?
So my thing is I think, and I don't know this, because whatever happens after that, whatever intelligence, it's never given back to us unless it becomes a case and we have to testify.
I see.
So I never heard another thing, but based on my experiences before that, and more importantly after that, is that they were testing the system.
Oh, wow. Okay. I see. They wanted to see what they could do.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Jurassic Park?
Yeah, of course.
And the T-Rex is touching the fence to see where it's electric. That's what they're doing.
Okay.
Ooh, I get zapped there. Ooh, I don't get zapped here.
Wow.
Yeah, they're testing. They're testing we refer to it in that type of work is they're testing the wire. They want to see what your reaction is and what will cause the reaction.
Wow.
So
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
One last question, which is
I've got all the time in the world. This is
okay. Yeah, I mean, I love this, but one last question, which is somewhat abstract, but it's cool given your entire career and stuff like this. Obviously, we're living in this Ukraine-Russia world right now, where the war is going on right now, and I'm sure probably, or maybe not, but at least there's a few people that have put out. Let's say one guy specifically put out a bounty for Vladimir Putin to be arrested. I think he's hoping that his inner circle would arrest him or something like this and collect. Now, you having served in protecting, heads of state and important people, what do you think? And obviously, there's a big difference. I know this, obviously, between Russia and.
You'd be surprised. It's similar.
Really? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Protection's protection to a certain extent.
Okay.
Well, so listen, in Russia, if you walked up within 100 feet of Putin and yelled a cuss word at him, they're probably going to break your arm and your jaw. In the United States, we're just going to say, okay, you can have your opinion.
Yeah. Exactly.
But protection is kind of protection, like as far as, looking here, looking there, equipment.
I see.
Right. Go ahead.
So my question really is, and you mentioned Fidel Castro as well, and I saw a documentary on Vladimir Putin just the other day where he was, I believe Fidel told Putin that one of the reasons that Fidel said to Putin, yes, that one of the reasons that I survived and one of the reasons that I was never assassinated was because I personally chose my security detail, etc. So my question then to you is, one, do presidents choose you specifically or choose people they want around you specifically? And then the follow-up question to that is how likely or how possible, because if in my lifetime, I can't remember, I know the Haitian president was just recently assassinated, I believe.
Right.
And that's
Right.
quite a crazy story. But
Yeah.
more or less, heads of state don't get in any trouble. There hasn't been there's not been an assassination. And how likely is it that something like this could truly happen, especially in a wartime?
Yeah. So the first assassination attempt of record was during the single digits in China. They tried to kill the emperor with a giant hammer on a
Wow.
roadway.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
just to,
It's been around.
in the United States, they have no say in it whatsoever.
Okay.
We're government employees. We are trained. We're evaluated, trained, hired, and retrained to a standard.
Uh-huh.
There's been a couple of times in the Secret Service where, because of political reasons, they put pressure on the Secret Service to put maybe a woman on the detail when there was no women or whatever. But they don't get to choose. Now, when you talk about Russia or Haiti, so there's just like dictatorships or communism, and they can do whatever they want. They probably have somewhat of a process, but if there's somebody that Vladimir Putin likes, then
He just
they'll work,
right.
they'll protect him. And as far as his inner circle whacking him, Putin, not likely, because they're believers.
I see.
So if you put up with that, security protection is a tough lifestyle. And that's when I say it's sort of similar. One thing you have to understand about security protection is it's expensive. And I don't care what your economic system is, it's expensive. And especially in the United States, it's really expensive. And because of the way our economy works. And so the Secret Service has, and a lot of security protection agencies do this. If I need 100 people to do a detail, I'm going to use 60, and I'm going to work everybody overtime because that's 40 bodies I don't have to pay.
I see.
Life insurance, benefits, pay. So it's exhausting work. You work a lot of hours. So his inner circle is probably pretty secure. And when you see somebody, whoever it was, made that put a bounty on his head or made a threat to him, you also have to. The first thing I think of is that it's a security apparatus of another country looking for a reaction.
I see.
So they've paid this guy, or they've asked this guy to make a threat to see what would happen. And sometimes people just do it because they think they can get away with it. And I could care less, because it's not the person that says he's going to do it. It's the 10 people out there that don't say it. And it's the one person, the person you're worried about. And this is the most important thing to worry about protection I don't care about the crazies that are jumping around outside the fence line. It's that one person that's willing to trade his life to try to end your protectee's life. Right. It's that one person. It's that Lee Harvey Oswald. It's that did you ever? You were talking about assassinations, and so there's a lot of them before you were born. Yeah. So one of the most significant ones is, look at the assassination of Anwar Sadat.
Anwar Sadat. The name sounds familiar.
Anwar Sadat. Watched how he got killed by his own military right in front of you.
Wow.
Right in a parade. They opened up on him. So,
where was this? Where was it?
In the Middle East.
Middle East. Okay. Oh, yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, that's a good one. And when I say good, I mean from the perspective of learning protection. Sure. This is how we when you're training people to possibly trade their lives or risk their lives for the protection of somebody else, it's not because you love them. I didn't love the Bushes. I didn't love the Clintons. You know what I love? I love the flag. Right. Our flag. I love the United States. I love the lifestyle that we can live. And I want to keep that chain of command, that continuity of government going. And do I think it was worth my life? Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, it's just a fascinating thing, given your perspective overall. Guys, this has been, first off, just way cooler, way crazier than I thought it would be, because these conversations in this podcast, truly has changed my perspective on a whole lot of things, and we get a whole lot of messages from people all the time talking about they caught this podcast, they caught that podcast. It's changed how they look and how they think. And so we're always encouraging guys to kind of just dig a little deeper and to educate themselves, so that's the goal. But where should guys? I know you've got Twitter because I found that
Yep.
while we're speaking. But where should we send people to check out more of your stuff?
Yeah. So my website is official Gary J. Byrne.
Mm-hmm.
And then YouTube, just put in my name, Gary Byrne or Gary J. Byrne. It'll pull up a video of me, and then just click on the thing, and it'll take you right to my YouTube page. I've got some funny videos on there. Mm-hmm. I got a couple serious ones. I got videos on there about different shooting techniques that I learned over the years. Gotcha. And some stuff where I test certain weapons and guns and stuff. And anyway. So yeah, and then my books are still available on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Secrets of the Secret Service and Crisis of Character, and they can actually be ordered off my. The first book can still be ordered off my website.
Okay.
Secrets of the Secret Service. Excuse me, Crisis of Character. So that's pretty. And Instagram, Gary James Byrne, and or Gary Byrne, and it'll pull it up, and then. Yeah, like Twitter, like you said, author Gary James Byrne.
Gotcha. We will link to everything, obviously, in the show notes. So, yeah, if you're on YouTube, it's in the description box. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts, it's in the show notes. Gary, this is awesome, man. Last question, really quickly. Are you planning anything else? You going to write some more books?
No, not right now.
No, huh?
I'm not planning anything right now. I'm just enjoying retirement.
Relax, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Guys, we'll see you later.